Yo, what up, UMU? It's me, Blackjack, the creator of Us Mentoring Us. Thank you for tuning in to yet another amazing segment that we got outlined for y'all today. Before I do that, take a quick moment to go over our disclaimer. All of the views and opinions expressed here today are our own personal views and opinions and do not represent the Air Force or any DoD organization. And lastly, before I go into our topic and our very, very special guest for today, I'd like to take some time to introduce to you all our admin team, who work very hard behind the scenes pushing all the content that you see on the page. Admin team, where y'all at? Chime in.
What's up, Team UMU? It's your boy, Mac.
Hey, UMU, it's Tony Renee from the admin team.
What up, UMU? It's Yancy.
What's going on, everybody? You already know it is your girl, Key.
Yo, what up, UMU? You know what it is. It's J. Will from the admin team. Yo, what up, UMU? So thank y'all as always for tuning in to another special Hot Wash. We got a special guest we're going to introduce y'all here in a second. But first, we're going to introduce the members from our admin team. As usual, we have Key joining us from the admin team. Say what up, Key.
Hey, everybody. What is up? Happy Hot Wash Wednesday.
Already, man. I want to just go. I want to just go ahead and jump into like our guest, like because he been getting a lot of love on Facebook, but not on Facebook himself. So he couldn't.
Right. I was about to say with his no Facebook having self, and I had to let everybody know that he did not have Facebook because we look out for each other on UMU, and I just did not want anyone to help us and let us know like, hey, tag him. He's not on the book, but he has been shown so much love. So to the point where they were asking us, how do we book him? So how do we book?
I don't know. Maybe they'll hear about it as we get into this conversation. So with that being said, so Chief, do not call him Jewell because it is Jewell Hicks.
Right.
We go ahead and bring you on. What's going on, Chief?
Hey, how's it going, Key and J. Will? No, I appreciate it. Y'all killing me with the no Facebook thing too. But hey, UMU family, just happy to be here. Really excited to have this conversation and looking forward to hopefully learning from y'all too. So it's good time.
Oh, no doubt. Give us a small snippet of background. Where you currently at? What's your background as far as like your FSC, family and stuff like that.
Okay. My name is Jewell Hicks. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. We already got a Cowboys hater in here. They're killing me. All right. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, originally born in Austin, raised in San Antonio. I am the senior enlisted leader for the 93rd Intelligence Squadron. I am a 1-in-1 or now a 1-in by trade. But I'm was also a prior diamond, once a diamond, always a diamond, a first sergeant, and also a communications operations specialist. I'm married. My wife is Chief Master Sergeant Nicole Hicks. She is a Madge mom, or she is the chief of the house. Make no mistake. I'm the third best airman in my family. My daughter is also an airman. Her name is Demi. And then my son is Jewel Desmond the third. So he's a gamer, wants to be a YouTube gamer when he grows up. So we're going to see how that works out. All right. But that's a little bit about it.
That's why
it's some money there now. It's some money in gaming now. That YouTube, it's some money.
You absolutely right.
And absolutely. And when you want to do something, you just do good at it. So yep. I can definitely love that. So like I said, UMU, if y'all not familiar with the Hot Wash, You will get familiar in this conversation. You take the people that you've all asked for, and we take them throughout the journey of their careers. We start from the beginning and we work towards the end, with the end goal to say, hey, what kind of mistakes or what some lessons learned so we don't repeat them again. So with that, Chief, I'm going to say in advance, thank you for your answers, because they're going to help somebody out throughout their career. But with that, we're going to jump into the questions, because they didn't come here to hear me talk and stuff. And like I said, we're going to start from the beginning. So I want to know, how did the Air Force come about? I want you to start from the beginning. Like, how did we end up with Airman Hicks?
Okay, so when I graduated high school, and I say graduated almost loosely, okay, so when I was never the studious type, didn't do good in high school. I didn't have the best grades. I'm be honest with you, I wasn't in class a lot. I was skipping school. This is not something my parents taught me. I wasn't raised this way. I just did not have the discipline in high school, right? I didn't even graduate with my class, to be totally honest with you. I had to do summer school to finish one last class because I just couldn't do right. So I ended up, finally graduating high school. Went to a community college for a little while, and it just wasn't fulfilling. It just wasn't, again, the class atmosphere just wasn't me at the time. I was worried about a ton of other things, running the streets and doing everything else I probably wasn't supposed to be doing. So I was staying at home at the time, and I remember my father, he basically kind of gave me an ultimatum. He said, hey, you're either gonna have to join the Air Force, or you're gonna have to get out of the house and kind of do your own thing. So he said, join the Air Force. So I went out and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go see the Army recruiter. So I went and saw the Army recruiter, and I came back home and I signed up to be a combat medic. I did delayed entry. I was all ready to go and everything cool. I was like, hey, whenever they can get me in. This is, I'd say it was about 6 months before 9/11 actually kicked off in 2001. So it was about 6 months before that. So I came home. I told my dad. My dad is a retired chief, right? So he wasn't really trying to hear that at the time. So he says, hey, no. What do you mean you signed up to be a combat medic in the Army? He's like, hey, we need to go see the Air Force recruiter. Nope, let's go back up there. So I literally went back. They were all in the same office. We went back to the Army recruiter, and my dad was right over my shoulder, and he's like, yeah, no, this ain't, we're not doing this. So I ended up switching over. I only wanted one job in the Air Force at the time. It was to be I wanted to do something with the computers. I wanted to be a network, administrator, something like that. That was the goal at the time. So I signed up to be a 3COX1. They no longer exist. Those are your 3 Deltas. That's your communication systems operators. And those, there was no time on the immediate horizon to join the United States Air Force. So I had to wait about 6 months, and then 9/11 kicked off. So then that's when that kind of sped things up, and I ended up, let's see, so it was 16 days after they told me it was going to be, probably wasn't going to leave until January, February the next year. And I got a call, and they were like, hey, can you go in 2 days? I was like, wait, what? At this time, I'm like, okay, I've been watching the news and everything, and I'm seeing how things are going. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I can do it, and I'm gonna be vulnerable right now. All right, at the time, I love R&B, right? Genuine was a big thing. All right, so I was having a lot of fun. I figured I was going to. I had to, like, all right, don't judge me, okay? I had like the
no judgment,
sideburns, right? The
no judgment, no judgment.
I'm judging.
I'm mode at this time. So literally, I showed up. My recruiter came, picked me up in a Chevy Malibu, literally a Chevy Malibu, and I was already missed 0 week. So it was so short notice. They were cramming people into BMT. There wasn't even a 0 week, so I missed that. And he picked me up in the Chevy Malibu, dropped me off the drill pad. I still had, the longer hair. I had the sideburns and everything, and literally, I got destroyed. They were waiting for me. It was fresh meat out there. Them TIs were on me so fast. So I had nicknamed Genuine the entire time because I showed up with sideburns. So hey, Genuine. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew I should shave before I did all this. So that was kind of my introduction into the United States Air Force.
I definitely wanted to ask that, like, because I know a lot of people that came in, of course, after, or they came in way before 9/11. So to be someone that came in 16 days after it kicked off, offline, I was like, okay, so were you on the books? or like were you like trying to do your patriotic thing, following your father's footsteps? And so to know the journey, I'm like, man, I probably would have been like, I need to wait a second to go from January to, okay, we're gonna bump this up months in advance to get you in there now. I can't even. Okay, genuine.
No, it was. I appreciate that story, man. And that's why I say that's why we do this, because everybody's got a story, and you think when you think you've heard it all, to hear that point, and I think you would be one of the first individuals that we talked to that came in right at that time. Like a lot of people were already in that we talked to. You get your '90s club or after the fact, but to hear that story and to hear the fact that we were pumping airmen through, so kind of knowing the basic training construct, it was just I'm kind of living in that story, because I'm like, I wonder if the TIs was ready, and then of course they were, and a few of y'all was probably getting pushed through. So.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, BMT going through in that time, like I said, it wasn't 9/11 isn't what drove me to go in at the time, but it gave it new meaning. And I think the TIs felt the gravity of what was going on, and really made sure that they pushed that on us too, and let us know what was going on in our nation, what we were getting ready to do. So it was like I said, I had that focus coming in, which was good for me.
Facts. Okay. So switching gears a little bit, Chief. So, we talked about basic training, but in your airman phase, your first duty station, was there an event or a person that kind of shaped you into the person that we see today?
Yeah, absolutely. At my first duty station was Dallas Air Force Base, and there was a Master Sergeant by the name of Tammy Davis. She's since retired, obviously. She was an outstanding, just human being, and I strong mentor for me. She's what I needed at the time. I needed some tough love. I think when I came in, I was so close to being home in San Antonio, Texas. Literally every weekend, I had my bags packed on Fridays, and I was bolting. I was trying to get back down to San Antonio, where I was up to no good anyway. Just getting back out into the streets and doing kind of what I was doing before I joined the military. And so when we talk about the person, she was the one that really pushed me to go on a deployment. She pushed me, and I'm so glad that she did, because when I deployed, that was kind of the aha moment for me. I had enlisted in September 27, 2001, but I probably started my journey to joining the Air Force on that deployment. I came back a completely different human being. So I was really fortunate that she looked out enough for me. She was kind of my second mom, if you will, because I needed a lot of guidance and mentorship at that time. I was telling people that, hey, I'm just coming in for my Microsoft certification. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out and make $120,000. That was the goal. I was going to get my Microsoft certification. I was going to get a $120,000 job, and I was going to drive a Mercedes, and I was good, right? I was back in San Antonio, and plan worked. But yeah, she really got me to see the light, saw something in me, and started kind of investing and pouring into me.
Nice.
Man, so when I tell you, we've all had that same story when you're like, man, I'm gonna do this little forward, and then because they got me, we talked about my story before, where they got me between the 4 and 6 year thing, because the 2 stripes and then the extra bonus. So looking back on it, when they said to a 17-year-old, hey, we'll give you $8,000, and I was like, I'm rich, so I'm about to do this. I'm about to do this little 6 years and be out. So no, with that, they but not getting on me. I did want to dive a little bit into that. What did that mentorship look like for you? What did she do differently, or what do you think really stood out? Because we use the broad term of mentorship, but for you, how did that look, and how did that connect with you?
She was the first person that I had that cared about me as a human being, that attempted to establish connection, not just making contact. I think there's a big difference between those two, right? Yeah, we see each other every day in passing. Normally, when you hit somebody, be like, "Hey, what up?" What's normally their response that comes back? They're like, "I'm doing good. I'm all right. I'm straight. We good. Why are you asking me that?" A lot of times that's what you get, right? But she was the first one that really wanted to know me as a person, my background. At that time, I was in a relationship that wasn't going well. Nobody else knew except for her. because she cared enough to establish trust to make me believe, and she really did, that she genuinely cared about who I was as a human being, and that allowed me to open up. And she actually was able to give me a lot of advice that saved me a lot of heartache later on in life. So I mean, that was the biggest thing, is the first example I had from the Air Force side. My mother and father were excellent examples. They're role models for me. But when it comes to the military, she was the first mentor that came into my life that really showed me that if you believe in people, you can change individuals' lives. It's not just about careers. Forget the careers. I get that's important and everything. Change individuals' lives if you establish connection with people.
Key, before I follow on with that, man, I'm getting a lot of Facebook users. I need a plug for Facebook
All right.
users.
I got you. All right. So everyone, if this is your first time tuning in with us, we are using a web-based called StreamYard, and StreamYard allows us to stream to multiple platforms at one time. So we are currently streaming to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. However, for Facebook, you have to enable StreamYard so we can see your name. You don't have to do anything additional on the YouTube side. So like right here, somebody is saying bless your heart, but we don't know who that is, right? And then someone else is giving Chief a shout out, and so all we see is Facebook user. So hopefully we have one of our admins that's in the comments as well that can put the link down below. I believe the link should be up there. Just enable StreamYard so that we can see your name and have more of a personal conversation back with you all. That's it.
No doubt, no doubt. Shameless plug, just because we're trying to get y'all coins as well. So and to put out a point before I go on to my question would be, it's so nice to hear that even at that time, so this would have been at 2001, 2002 timeframe, that a master sergeant was pouring into a brand new airman. I know a lot of times we get that conversation and where there's kind of a gray area with where they should be dealing with their immediate supervisor, but then to see a master sergeant even at that time having the ability to allow you to have a first line supervisor, but also be in that mentorship role as well. It was just so good to hear. And yeah, I loved hearing that story. Just simple as that. So now we got you on that. They didn't shape you. At some point, we met NCO Hicks. NCO Hicks didn't get everything right the first time. So what I want to know is, so as you transition to NCO, is what is something that you struggled with becoming an NCO, and then how did you overcome that, or what did you learn from those struggles?
I made a bunch of mistakes. First and foremost, I was just starting off. I was one of the supervisors that, or the NCOs that put on staff sergeant, and the next day they were rating on some of their what was considered peers. You know, you go from being a peer one day to a supervisor the next day, and that was a really tough transition because these are relationships that I had established, individuals that I had hung out with. We had probably drank before, or just really we're kind of close knit, and then to come in the next day and have to be a supervisor was really difficult. And I know I made some mistakes along the way, and we actually laugh and joke about them now. I still keep up with those individuals to this day, and they're like, "Yo, you really, I don't know how you turned out to be where you are right now, but you really lucked up and fell into something." But I think a big thing for me when it comes to learning as an NCO, and probably one of the biggest mistakes I made, is not being able to know the difference between accountability and what rehabilitation is. I think a lot of times when we look at paperwork, anybody can write an LOC, anybody can write an LOR. I can literally teach my 13-year-old son to come in here. I can give him a template, and he can bang out a couple of those. It's really, that's not the difficult part, right? Paperwork is not a substitution for mentorship. Paperwork is not what shifts culture. People do. I think when it comes to rehabilitation, I think it's one thing to hold somebody accountable. I think it's another to have a corrective action plan or a get well plan, or, hey, how do I invest in this individual to make sure that I am allowing them to be the elite version of themselves? How do I make sure that I'm pouring into them at the end of the day? Because if rehabilitation is the goal, how am I able to make sure that I am connecting, giving them the resources to get better? And I think sometimes I missed that early in the ball game, and that's one of the things that I learned, and I make sure that I preach moving forward, is because we don't human capital is our most valuable resource. We can't afford to get this wrong. Every single time, like I said, our near peer competitors, where we are in the world right now, we got to get this right. Just simple as that. So that was a massive lesson learned for me as an NCO.
Respect. I will ask, because you mentioned some flaws or some things that you did negative in those relationships. Were you able to rebuild that relationship at that time, like even with that airman or that troop? And then if so, like, how did you go about that? Like, because you've identified there's a problem, and then you're like, hey, I'm going to fix this now. Or did that come later on? Just the honest opinion on how was that addressed?
One of the things that I think growing up, and I'm so thankful that I had, my dad was a big advocate for me in this regard, is that sometimes humility is one of the biggest qualities that will get you through. If you can treat people with respect, be humble, and if you mess up, just say you messed up. Just apologize. Hey, I'm sorry. That's a really difficult thing for people to say. My wife will probably tell you that it doesn't come easy for me as well. But sometimes just being say, hey, look, I'm sorry, and that's what I did in that situation. It's just like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm learning this. I'm trying to get through this. How should I have went about this, or how can I make sure that I'm better next time? And the conversation didn't, it went with some a little bit elevated voices, and they let me know exactly how they felt, because I'm not gonna lie, you put on that stripe, everybody coming out of ALS, there's a whole bunch of car wrecks coming out of the ALS building because everybody's looking at their stripes like this right after graduation. Nobody's watching the road. They're looking at that new stripe.
Right, you see it.
So I mean, it's one of those where you just learn, like, hey, the stripe isn't what makes the leader. It's being able to engage, being able to be humble, and make sure that you're listening, and you can apologize when you do something right and get better. Like I don't look at it as a failure thing. I've had some significant learning opportunities, and that was a huge one for me. And being able to say, hey, I can't come across like this. I can't come, and how I come at somebody, I got to be careful, because you may get a response back that you may not want, or may not think you're going to get at that time.
Right. It's tough sometimes to show that side, to show humility, because if it's not received, or if the person's like, that's right, you better apologize. Back then I wanted to take it back. Like, never mind, let me take this apology and put that thing back. But I had to get to a place where it didn't matter how they responded, because I was doing it for me, and I wanted to be able to advocate and fight for my people. So I had to make sure I could stand in the gap. I hear that. All right, so Chief, as you're in this NCO space and stage, is there one thing that you regret that you wish you could have done differently if you could go back in time to your NCO self?
Okay. I think I made a lot of assumptions. And I assumed that people knew what right looks like. I think a lot of times we look at our PME system, we look at if somebody's been through ALS, they must know how to supervise, right? If somebody's been through NCOA, they've been through the Senior NCO Academy, they should know how to lead at this point. But I think I made a lot of assumptions instead of being able to take a step back and maybe explain the why to airmen. So that is I am huge on explaining the why. I absolutely regret that I did not take the time to explain to airmen where their piece in the puzzle was, right? I think if you are willing to come into the military and you are willing to give your life for your country, you should know the why behind it, right? You should be able to understand where you fit in the big piece of the puzzle as the warfighter. And I really looking back, I think I could have probably shaped some careers differently. I think there'd be some people that could have been able to stay in the military, even if I would have maybe just get to see how important they are, where they fit in, and allow them to be the best version of themselves, because that's explaining the why is huge. I'm big on that. I don't care what it is. You got to explain the why to airmen, to human beings in general.
Yeah. And it's humbling to hear, and very appreciative to hear, because a lot of times you'll get the feedback of, like, I'll get to it when I can. Like, I don't have time to explain the why right now, but then, when I do have time, then I'll get back with you. So to hear one of the leaders out there that's like, hey, I'm going to make time, like I'm going to prioritize this because it's that important. And I think sometimes we lose that, especially as we get up in the ranks too, because we always get the why. Like that comes with whatever the task is. So you kind of forget sometimes that you were on the other end of the stick where you were getting the task and not told the why, because all the rooms we sit in now always come with the why. And so it's inherent. Go ahead.
If I'm being honest, I even at some point, I think I probably looked at it as I was being challenged. I was absolutely wrong. 100%. I think especially nowadays, airmen, they're kind of demand to know the why. And if you're not careful, you can lose them. And that's the important. If you're trying to create a culture of, transparency and where they fit in, you got to explain the why. Start with the why. And I promise you, you will be so much better off as an NCO, as a leader, as a human being. Just explain the why. Start there.
Oh, I really don't want to get off track. I'm like, because it's a deep subject for me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a deep subject for me because we inherently believe that they can't not only grasp, but sometimes it would be too much for them when we don't understand the fact that the information that they have access to readily available, they already have majority of. They just want to hear it from you, and to see what side you're on, and not to get on another conversation, but they came up in an age where they always had the information. It is always there. So to bring them into an environment where you're telling them you're not giving them the information, and they're like, well, why? Like, I always have the information. So why would you not give me the information? And to understand that piece is just such an interesting conversation. Not to get off but just I love hearing it because there's so many layers to that it's like, hey, we just have to understand, and we can get into the piece. Like, there's one of you.
Yes.
How many NCOs are there? How many airmen are there in your organization? So unless you can multiply yourself, then if 80% of your squadron is asking for something, then like, okay, like there's only one of you. So
and Jay, well, I could have thrown out delegation too. That's a big one. That was a rough lesson learned for me. I don't want to keep dragging this on, but I made so many mistakes. I'd be here till next year telling you about all the lessons I learned.
No, it's all good. And that's a big one, right? Because then you don't want stuff to fail or whatever. But we're gonna get off topic. I'm telling you this.
He said, I want to say something real quick.
Go ahead.
He's hitting such a great spot. And I think for me too, as an NCO, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was to not go to malice first. If someone is asking me a question that works for me, don't go to malice first, like they're challenging you or that, they're bucking you or whatever. A lot of times, like Jay Will, like you said, they know the information, but they just want to have that interpretation from our perspective. But if you go to malice first and they can feel it, they're going to shut down. Where you already thought I was going to do X, Y, and Z. And so you hit that to me.
Hey, look, I can keep going. Like it's our job. It's literally written down to translate leaders' direction. Like that's your job. But at some point we forget, like, oh, well, no, that applies to X responsibilities. Oh, no, that applies to Y responsibility. And you're like, well, actually, at every level, and that's why we can get into like priorities, right? So that's why we don't just have wing priorities, right? Because the group then translate and give theirs, then the squadron translate theirs, and then flights and sections or whatever, right? And it's all intentionally based. So I'm sorry, I can go on a tangent for a while. But to stick on your career as we talked about the regrets, because you mentioned early that you realized that you were serving from the deployment, that it kind of switched something in your mind. But then you also mentioned that you recognize the fact that you have credentials. You have credentials that are very valuable outside of the Air Force. So did you have what we like to call a mid-career crisis. Did you have a moment where you had, and then normally for everybody it's around that 10-year mark, 10 to 12-year mark, we're NCOs, we're staff sergeants or tech sergeants or whatever, and then maybe even master sergeants, but we're at a point in our career where we're just like, I don't know, do I want to finish out? Do I want to get out, or what it is? How did that look like for you? And then how did you make the decision to stay around?
I'll say that for me, that probably occurred as a tech sergeant. As a tech sergeant, there was a point to where my wife, she had deployed. She was in a combat zone. She had come back at that time. She was diagnosed with severe PTSD. She had actually had a combat wound that she suffered while she was out at her location. I had a airman that I was a first line supervisor for that took his own life, and there was a lot going on in my life at the time. So when we're talking about a mid-career crisis, I felt like almost everything that could go wrong at that time was probably going wrong for me. There was family things that I had going on at the time, and I really had to ask myself a question and say, hey, what is really going to, where do I go from here? I hit that point. I was excelling at work, but I got to be honest with you, teammates. It's not all about what you're doing at work. I've seen the best of airmen not be able to keep it together, decide to get out. And sometimes you ask why, and it could be family issues, it could be whatever. So I had to sit down and have a conversation with my wife, and we had to literally, we had to step back. We had to say, hey, let's focus on us. Let's focus on family. Let's make sure that we can get this right, and we'll see what happens moving forward. It worked out. There was a lot of great things that came out of it. My wife is outstanding. She went on to do great things. I was able to continue to do great things. Iron sharpens iron in a lot of ways. She's a mentor for me. I would say we bounce things off of each other all the time. So I know being a dual mill family is really tough. And that's why I say when the mid-career crisis, if anything, when all these things kind of converge, we had to start asking, the question started coming up was, who stays in? Who does this? When you have to look your spouse in the eye and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, but play rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to take care of a sick family member. That's rough. That's really difficult. And you have to start really looking at life choices, how you're going to proceed, and start coming up with plans. Luckily, I had a lot of great family around us at the time that really rallied around us, got us through a tough time. And obviously we both ended up staying in. But for me, that's at that midpoint when you have to really start deciding, hey, are we going to put one person's career forward, or is the other one going to start doing things? Are you going to go to school now, or am I going to go to school now? Or, there was one point, my wife, we said, hey, you get your degree first. I'll take care of the son and the daughter. We'll keep pushing, doing whatever. So we would alternate. We would do things like that. Whether she was taking courses, I was taking courses. So you work it out, you work through it. That was the biggest thing for me, was when the military and family life, you had to start putting those together and see how they were going to coexist together. And I'm not saying we all have it, we have it all figured out, but communication was the key for us. So when you talk midlife or mid-career crisis, that's kind of how mine unfolded.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of times we'll see those mill-to-mill couples where they both are dominant. You know what I mean? And so sometimes you see those mill-to-mill couples where one may just be laid back, like I just want to do my time and be done. And sometimes you don't even necessarily know if that person, if that's truly how they feel sometimes. And then, with some of my friends or other individuals I've come in contact with, they grew a level of resentment. So to have those conversations early and truly be able to say, like, I want this to happen, or I want that to happen, or the expectation is if the child gets sick, the wife is going and not the husband, or we're going to push this or not push that, to see that you all were able to communicate through that. Aside from you all having family around, what helped you all like get through that patch? Because that's very real, and it's very real for our airmen and a lot of the people that's on UMU that's listening.
No, I think I'm very open about this. And I think we need to, as leaders, be really transparent. So mental health has been our friend. The Hicks family, make no mistake about it, mental health has been our friend. So that be being able to reach out. And I'm not ashamed to say, hey, I didn't. Simple as that. I went through a really rough patch, especially after dealing with the loss of, an airman that I was first line supervising. I think at one point, all I did at that point was lay around. I literally laid in bed for a good period. I lost a whole bunch of weight. I wasn't doing good. It took a command chief literally to drag me over to mental health before I was able to kind of get the help I need. So first and foremost, it was getting help, I think, is the big thing. And I know I've said this, but teammates, this is a massive thing. Communication, talking about these things, having open dialogue with your spouse or your significant other, whoever that may be. Those are the things that really kind of got us through, and being able to, especially for us, is respect each other's careers as their own, right? Because it may be easy to be like, hey, well, I won this award last year, so that kind of gives me the leg up moving forward. No, that's not how it goes. That's not how that game goes.
Right.
My wife, that conversation really didn't go well. She's pretty feisty, so that was the big thing for us is communication and reaching out, getting help.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you touched on it, because I did want to ask kind of a personal question in this one is like when you talked about respect each other's careers, and but you're still a married couple. So how did that conversation work out where and I have to be as honest as possible. So there's a head of the household, there's a king, and there's a queen, right? So how did y'all communicate to each other on and I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I'm just, there's a lot of
make your point. Make it plain.
I'm just saying there's a lot of male-to-male couples out there that have to have to have that conversation and have to say, okay, well, king, queen. How did that dynamic look for you all? And then how did that conversation go? Like what went, can you why you gonna do that? See, he ain't gonna
look, and she know I got her back. She know I got her back, because I ain't know where you was going with that plane.
No, I'm just asking, there's communicate. There has to be an honest conversation in there, right? There has to be, but I'm glad that you touched on it. And then I know an overarching thing is respecting each other's careers. So, but could you dive into that a little bit? And then was there that conversation on whatever, and then, putting each other first or whatever the case is?
Boy, they would have put me in the hot seat. God,
yes, he did.
I got to sleep in the same. Okay, all right. So, hey, I'll say this. So I think it's important first and foremost to say, being an airman does not define me or my wife. Simple as that. Okay, because there is life after the Air Force. So you have to be really careful when you start looking at career-wise, who's going to go. You have to make the best decision for the family. But I think being able to look at each other as equals and have that conversation and just see what their goals are ultimately. Now, my wife is more educated than I am. She's got a master's degree. She's got great things going on. But I think when you look at the longevity of a career, everything changes. It changes. I say at this point, almost daily for us. Sometimes, you come home, you feel a certain way, or, you find out that you got this job that may have came up, and, my wife is going off to be a group chief and going to do great things. And that may change her trajectory. I think it's just one of those that you have to take everything in consideration, and just remember, it's okay to feel one way one day, and then the next day come back and be like, yo, that changed. Oh, I had a really good year. Like you may have somebody who maybe if the spouse, the wife is, or the spouse is doing really good, and the other spouse is kind of lagging behind, then the one that lags behind is 12 outstanding airmen, then what happens, right? It changes, right? I think so. You have to look at it and ultimately have your goals. If it's to stay in 20, if it's to stay in 30, whatever it is, you want to work together to make sure that you're filling each other's cups, speaking each other's love languages. See, I got to clean it up now, Key. Key gonna get me in trouble here, and just make sure at the end of the day that you're making sure that you're attentive to each other's needs. And I see Chief Hannibal over here just blowing me up. All right, we're gonna do that.
Y'all know we have to ask these. I don't know why they would do that to him. We have to ask these questions because And we've always told
Right.
y'all, UMU, we're going to ask our guests the hardest questions, and because
Yes.
they have experiences that can help you all out. And I know a lot of
Absolutely.
people in their household, especially in male-to-male couples, struggle with that communication piece. And then
Yes.
because we always say, oh, well, I'll take the back seat, and then whatever. But like at the end of the day, as you just said, like you're not airmen first, right?
Right.
So you have your household and your family first. And then with that becomes expectations. And then you add on the layer of being an airman on top of being men and women in this case. So I think that's.
Jalen, this is one where I don't think we talk about dual mil couples enough in the United States Air Force. And this is one that my wife and I, we just say, hey, we can't be the only ones having this issue. So even at like Milton Hall, we started doing like a dual mil course. And we just say, hey, let's just get in the room. And these stories that came out, whether it was childcare, whether it was deployments, whatever it was, there are a lot of our airmen that are dealing with some pretty unique circumstances that I think every airman serves in their own right. But I think when you have the dual meal thing, it does bring special circumstances in that you have to account for. So that's a difficult. Every airman, being an airman is difficult, let alone being married mill to mill.
It is. And I wish I could have been a part of those to just listen in on those conversations, because we do get questions to the group that are mill to mill related. A lot of times we do have to educate where there are, even though there are definitely struggles and challenges with the mill to mill side, also empowering and educating them on the things that that mill to mill couples are privy to that other couples are not. And so them just understanding and knowing they a lot of times they don't even know the questions to ask, especially the younger mill-to-mill couples. So maybe that's something that we should definitely touch on at a later date, Jewell, just to bring more light, empowerment, and education on mill-to-mill couples.
Well, I got it. I'm already, I'm keeping the plug. I didn't take over the duties tonight.
Trouble. Now I got to deal with
right. No, okay. So keeping in line with that. So after you get through your midlife crisis moment, there may be a time where you have to kind of shift and the type of leader that you want to be, right? Or you know your voice and how you're going to advocate for your folks. And during that time, because you may have had to prune that tree a little bit, going from an airman to an NCO. But once you started going into that backbone / you starting to get into the senior NCO tier, where there are bridges you had to burn. Because at a certain point, some individuals just can't separate the two. You know what I mean? To where they're like, oh, it don't take all that, or I'm not that blue, or whatever it is that you want to stand on. Did you ever have to burn bridges to be, more of an effective leader, or to this person that we see today?
I'm sure almost everybody has probably burned a bridge at some point in their life, right? I have always tried to do right by people, just as a bottom line. I tried to just be a decent human being. And I try to build up enough, we'll call it trust equity, to where if I make a mistake, that it's almost hey, you got to charge it to Chief's mind, not his heart. I think when I have to start questioning intentions, I think that's when things get interesting. I can deal with mistakes all day, but I try to make it to where nobody ever has to question my intentions. So if I did burn a bridge, I could tell you it wasn't intentional. I may have iced over some bridges and made them difficult. It made them difficult to cross, or made them icy or whatnot. But I sure hope I didn't burn any bridges. Again, I just try to be as humble as I can and really just take care of people and be myself. That's all I can do. But at the end of the day, be humble.
I think we scarred him from the last question, Keith.
Wait, so okay. So let me ask a different way.
Yeah, it was good, so, but he's like, I'm still gonna be humble. I don't want to,
No, right?
No, but you're right. But I guess I would ask I would add on to Keith's question and saying this: did you have to burn a bridge because it was negatively affecting you? And then if so, how did that look?
Burn a bridge? No. Did I have to reevaluate who is in my circle? Absolutely. I think at some point, if you have individuals around you that are not positive, or they're not for the right thing, I think at some point you have to really look at that and say, all right, what am I doing? If they're not, I think I've heard somebody say in the past that you are an average of what your friends are, right? Or the sum of your friends. I think I'm probably really misquoting that. But at the end of the day, you birds of a feather flock together. So I try to keep positive people around me, and just make sure that I keep that circle pretty tight. And those who I let into my circle, we're all about positive things, uplifting each other, and making sure that we can pull along people to that next level. So I can't say that I've burned any bridges or had to do it to get to a certain point. So yeah, I can't say that.
No, that's respect. And then
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say, I got something real quick. So one of my mentors once told me he was like, if I want to see what your net worth is, I need to look at your network. And one of the biggest lessons I learned as a tech sergeant was those peer-to-peer relationships and building bridges. And that was extremely tough for me because I don't feel like we were taught how to compete with each other, because this is when force distribution was starting to come up. So the only time you saw that competitiveness was during strats. But he was like, you need your peers. Those peer-to-peer relationships matter. And so he was like, you don't have to even open your mouth. If I want to see what your net worth is, I need to see what your network is. And so during that time of like changing, and you're fine tuning this leader that you are right now that we see, did you have to build bridges? How did you compete in a positive way where, there's so much room at this table for everybody to win? How did what did that look like for you? Yes.
Yeah, I never found myself competing against one person in particular, right? If anything, if I saw somebody that I was like, wow, okay, they got it together, or man, that there's something there that I would love to emulate. I'd actually just go to them like, yo, you got it going on. Like, hey, what can I do for some of that greatness to rub off on me? And I again, maybe it's just the way my weird brain thinks, but when you think about it, at the end of the day, you're competing against your career field a lot of times, right? When it comes to half the time when you go to a top 3 meeting, and if we're being honest, there
Right.
or any kind of meetings you have, there's a lot of competition amongst NCOs, senior NCOs. I've never understood it. I've never been afraid for an individual to leapfrog me. Yes. Never, not once. We can't. That leapfrog mentality, it breeds a toxic culture. That's not what competition looks like. Now there's friendly competition. There's iron sharpens iron. I've been in some great teams. I know my first sergeant council at Mildenhall, we all pushed each other. That was huge. It wasn't a competition thing. If somebody was doing something great and inspired them to go over here and find out something that they can get into, or if anything, it made it seem like, hey, this is possible. Do you know how much you can accomplish when everybody is pushing towards a same goal instead of looking at the next person to their left or the right as competition? That is, again, it's just not a good place to be in. And I think as leaders, especially as when we go back to our work centers and we notice stuff like that, it's important to explain the why and say, hey, there's enough, like you said, Key, there's enough at the table. Hey, come eat.
So it's look, it never ending. It never. I need to stop. She brought you also, because I'm gonna keep going, because I can definitely add on to this one. But as you see, she's trying to brought you into now we're starting to step into senior NCO. We're gonna I want to take you to the senior NCO part initially, like E7 early senior NCO. What was one of those challenges that you had in that transition from NCO to senior NCO?
And I imagine we're just talking in general, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're one of the things that you struggled with
Okay.
and as a senior NCO, what was one of those challenges for you?
I think by nature, I don't know if y'all know the Myers-Briggs, the colors. I know they talk a lot about those. You learn, at least when I went through an NCO academy, they did the colors and everything. So I am an orange blue. Okay. So blue, my side is I'm caring. I really don't like hurting anybody's feelings. I try to make sure everybody feels valued, everybody feels wanted. That's just kind of part of who I am, right? But what I quickly learned is, and I this came crystal clear when I became a senior NCO, is I robbed people of an opportunity to be great. because I did not give them the feedback that they deserved at that time. Being able to give that feedback and being able to be pointed and say, hey, it takes courage to tell somebody that they're failing or they're not meeting the standard. It doesn't come natural for everybody. And if I'm being honest, I don't know if it came exactly natural for me. I got really comfortable with doing that as a senior SEO, I think, because again, I had a chief tell me, and when he said it, it was Chief Stanley Higgins. He said, you are robbing so many people of an opportunity to be great, and that's your fault. That's not on anybody else. And I said, okay. I said, that's what I needed to hear. So at that point, that was a crystal clear signal for me. So I always look at it as if I see somebody doing wrong, or even if it's just, hands, hands in pockets is not such a thing anywhere. But if somebody's not wearing a hat somewhere, or if there's a infraction, I do not hesitate with being able to go up to an individual and say, hey, can I be your wingman? Like, what you mean, be my wingman? I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to help you out. Hey, I noticed that, you didn't have your hat on. Were you aware of that? I'm like, oh crap, I got to go back and get my, whatever it is. I don't, if it's a small infraction, if it's a big thing, if it's feedback, if they're missing the mark as a leader, I'm going to let them know, because I care about them enough that I want them to be the elite version of themselves that they can be.
Look,
that hurt a little bit. That hurt a little bit, because I'm a blue gold. I'm a blue gold. That blue side, the feelings, but you're right.
Man, I had to tell I literally had this conversation 2 days ago, and hopefully they don't watch, so they'd be like, whatever. But I mean, like literally 2 days ago, and I had to bring a guy into the office, senior NCO, into the office, and he was pissed at me. Like he was pissed with whatever decision I made or whatever the case is. And I had to tell him, because I was in the space that what you just said. I said, look, man, you're taking what I'm saying as criticism, as though I'm trying to be negative towards you. I'm trying to tell you, I don't want you to do the same, for lack of better words, shit that I did. So when I'm giving you this feedback, this is me trying to tell you, like, don't be me, be better than me. And then he looked at me and he was like, I'm sorry, because we inherently think when people giving feedback, we think, well, whatever. But then to go back to your early point of explaining the why and like tying it all in was like, we went through the same situation, and that's why we inherently don't, because we don't want that individual to get upset at us. We don't want whatever. And then sometimes, going back to your other point of the why, you have to bring them back in, because this individual was genuinely upset to the point where it was like an open environment and everybody could see their attitude and whatever. And they're like, what's going on between them two? And I'm like, all right, well, I got to bring you in the office. So, and then I told him, now I also had to tell him, like, I'm not changing my decision. Like, I know you didn't agree with my decision, but just to let you know why I'm saying what I'm saying or doing what I'm doing. This is why. So thank you.
And one other thing, just kind of to elaborate on that a little bit more. So I think another mistake I made was I gave up too soon on the late bloomer. So I think not everybody gets it at the right time, at the same time that you do, or early on. I was also given some really good advice. It's mentor all, groom some. So everybody hits that point to where they may hit that point to where they're ready to be a flight chief or something else, but don't give up on those who are not showing those characteristics at that point. So you always want to be mentoring. Don't give up on the late bloomer, because I think some of those individuals who I thought maybe originally didn't have it, they just hadn't been shown what right looked like. All of a sudden, you kind of show them, you point out some things, you pour into them, you give them a little bit, and all of a sudden they're Airman of the Year, they're NCO of the Year, they're doing great things. So as senior NCOs, it is extremely important. Do not, and tell your airmen, do not give up on the late bloomer.
Look, see, he was dropping. I had to go to mute. Hey, listen.
I see she got the pen out and everything.
I had to write her down. That's true. Mentor all groom. Say that line one more time, just for the ones in the back.
Mentor all, groom some. And again, hopefully they all hit that point to where you're grooming them to be that next thing, but pour into them, mentor. And again, there's going to be some that are ready for that grooming into those next positions, but always pour into those individuals.
I like that. I like that. I like, look, because that's saying a lot. Because what's so crazy is when I was at a certain space in my life, I wasn't there and I wasn't ready, and it was weird because I felt like certain leaders gave up on me because in their mind it was, well, if she wants it, it's gonna look just like this. But it took an individual that was like, I'm gonna just keep on pushing it and pouring it out there. I can't want it more than you do. So once you start changing your movement, then I'll definitely pour in there more. And it was I didn't feel the pressure of, man, if I'm not doing it like this, that means I'm not worthy to be an airman. You know, we want to look at it from that aspect, but to kind of like meet a person where they're at versus that expectation, and that meant for all.
Yeah, it's and I only want to make one point on that comment, and to give a perspective on it was, you know, we meet a individual at a junction in their career, right? And unknowingly understanding what they've been through prior. So we inherently, like, we want to tell them something and then them be like, okay, I got it. But not knowing what type of leader they had before, or what type of individual they came across, or what's been happening up until that point. So then when we don't get that immediate reaction, then we're automatically like, oh, you're not the one, I'm moving here. But we're not given the respect of what, you know, most people now, I can say this, Chief, most people that come across you have probably been in over 10 years or so. And then it's 10 years of something of, I don't know, you know. So I definitely love that point. And yeah, but that is the one thing. I'm just like, sometimes we don't respect the fact, like, hey, we just meet them at a certain point and what happened before. So great with that. So
but just like, well, hold on, just like Chief said, when he had that airman that took his life, what if the next supervisor wasn't aware, or maybe was aware, but in their mind, it's all right. You know, you have certain leaders that tell you, like, if something's too heavy or not, just because you can handle 20 pounds and I can only hold 5, don't judge me with that. But if he, you know, depending on who was his leadership right after that, they could have like judged him falsely, like, okay, he doesn't want it because he's not doing X, Y, and Z, not knowing he need to take a knee.
Yeah.
We say we let folks take a knee. We don't let them take knees. We don't let people take a knee. They don't take a knee.
Yeah, we do. But so that's that senior NCO point. And kind of wrapping it up in a ball. And I know this is hard when we're going to ask you this. But we want to know, what's one of the fondest memories of your career? I want you to look at your whole career and then tell me. And because you got Key to write something down. Yeah. You got Key to write something down. Because he's been in for so
long. Let him pick like 3 for each tier, because he's been in.
I'm gonna give him, well, not 3 for each tier. We not okay. We don't give. But you're the first person that has made Key write something down. So with that being said, I'll give you 2. So I'll give you one early in the career, and then one a little bit later. I'll let you choose. But give me 2 of your fondest memories of your career.
So the Air Force has given me a lot. Okay, I think the correct first answer is that it allowed me to meet my wife. Right. So that's that. No, okay, all right. I'm gonna be serious here. Okay.
I told you he was scarred. He was scarred.
That's a good one.
Of course, that's one, right? Hey, but more recently, I think for me, watching my daughter graduate BMT was one of the biggest moments, not just of my career, but of my life. To have another Hicks that has joined the military, we have a long, we have a history of Hicks in the United States Air Force. So it was absolutely outstanding. Baby girl got BTZ here recently. She's doing great things. I mean, it just is really, that was massive, not just for me, but for our family. I know for my wife, that was huge. The other one, and there's a theme here. It's family. I think obviously meeting my wife, but my father actually, he had retired. They allowed him to come back in uniform and present me my airman's coin. At that point, they had, Warrior Week. At the end of Warrior Week, they would give you your airman's coin. So they actually allowed him to come in. And I remember my dad being in stripes, wearing stripes at the time. He had to get the permission from the wing commander and everything, and presented me my airman's coin. And I have it to this day. That is a memory that I will always cherish. That's been big. Teammates, I've never really been big on the awards thing. I've had some accomplishments. I don't consider it's the things like that. It's the individuals that remember down the line that say, hey, I remember when he took care of me or he did this. Those are the wins for me. The people that look back and be like, hey, he cared about us. He really genuinely poured into us. Those are the things that keep me going. So those are, I get those, every so often, and it's always good to hear that kind of stuff.
It definitely was an outpour, because again, you don't have Facebook, so you wouldn't have seen it. But I'm gonna give him a hard time. But that was definitely, once we said who was on the lineup to come on, just to see the love, the outpour of love from different individuals that looked like they were from, different walks of life, different AFSCs, different times. To me, that is a true testament when a leader can be effective to different types of people, different types of circles. And if anything, all of them were like, you being a first sergeant, you being a superintendent, you taking care of them in those different capacities, like that definitely like rang true. And I'm telling you, like, I think that blue side, it's hard sometimes to kind of like have that line, because you do have certain individuals where they'll go to malice first. And and not realizing we spend more time with each other than we do our loved ones. And so it's like, do you have to mentor this individual that way? Or do you have to belittle an individual because when you're doing too much? But to see the reverse of it, where a person could be going through the worst time of their lives, and you use those chevrons to cover them, allow them to truly take a knee and protect them, and let them know like it really is okay. And to show that human factor and that human side, they don't make them like that as much as they used to, from my opinion. But we definitely thank you. That definitely was like ringing true. So that was a good one. Okay. So as we transition, the next one is going to be rapid fire. So these rapid fire questions, this is Jewell's thing, Chief. I'm just gonna let you know now. So it's supposed to be a quick with it. He's gonna ask you a question. It's not gonna seem fair because you do have a lot of individuals that's tuning in. So it may be, what's your favorite this, or fondest memory of that, and the first thing that comes to your mind is the answer that we want to hear.
Okay.
That's fair. So let's go ahead and hit these rapid fire questions. Give me 1 or 2 liner answers. I'm going to throw one curveball in here that I don't think he even knows about. So he's going to be like, oh man, I need more than 2 lines. So, but I won't start off with this one. So we'll get you going. So easy one to start off with. How do you recharge?
Oh, that's a good one. Working out would be one. I think being surrounded by family. So I am probably an introvert by nature. So being able to come home and just kind of getting my introvert shell, because at work I got to be extrovert. That's just kind of, I know when to kind of turn it on, turn it off. And I love TV shows. So I'll go back, and my favorite TV show of all time is The Wire. So I love my Wire.
All right.
I'm watching Yellowstone right now. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I know you're watching Snowfall too then, but we're not going to get into that. Today, who is your role model?
My father.
Fair. What was your favorite TDY and why?
Ooh. I could tell you Hawaii off top, because who doesn't like Hawaii, right? But I think my favorite, most memorable is being able to go out with maintainers when I was a first sergeant and be on the aircraft, see what those airmen do day in, day out. I have so much respect for the maintainer community, and I was just blessed to be able to go out, see them in action, be a little bit part of that, hand them tools on the flight line, and bring out drinks while they was really hot. I'm telling you, that's rough duty right there.
No doubt. What's one thing you wish you knew before you joined?
Before I joined? Wow, that's a tough one. I can look back and I say, I wish I would have lived in the moment more. I think for individuals, I think sometimes we're always looking towards that next stripe or the next duty station, or, hey, what happens next? I really wish I would have, if I could tell myself before I come in, is just enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. Don't get caught up in so much what's going to happen next. It's okay to live in the moment sometimes.
There you go. I have a great roller coaster analogy. But what is your most important leadership quality?
That's a tough one. I'm just going to go off the rip. Empathy is huge for me. Empathy is huge. I think the ability to show empathy is what drives connection. It's what makes you relatable. I think being vulnerable is also a really big one. I think humility. I'm throwing them all out there.
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
I was like, man, we letting them get away with it.
You cheated a little bit.
There's so many, right?
Yeah, there's so many.
So,
But if you had to pick one, okay, fair. What is one of your pet peeves?
Lack of accountability. I can leave it. I'm not even gonna give you
Okay.
two.
No, that's fair.
I won't even give
That's
y'all
fair.
that. Lack of accountability.
So, curveball. Why does the Air Force need first sergeants?
Well, let me use this analogy. All right. So a good first sergeant, if you have, stormy waters, they are the beacon that's constantly flashing in the distance. It's just kind of always there, flashing, letting you know that if you ever need them, they are right there. First sergeants, a good first sergeant is the heart and soul of a unit. I truly believe that. They are the ones that when everything is going right, everything is going wrong, it doesn't matter. First sergeants see people at their best or their worst. They are always there, though. They're the ones that you can always count on to deliver, to get things done. And I love being a first sergeant because I wasn't the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't the bad guy. I was there to pick everybody up and high five them. Now, if they needed a kick in the shorts, we could do that too. But I just think sometimes I would pinch myself and I would say, I cannot believe I get paid to come to work and take care of airmen in this capacity. It is incredible.
Respect.
And I just hope one day, maybe even I get to put that diamond back on, but don't get me started on first sergeant duty. That's
no, respect. And that's why we threw it in. That's why we threw it in here at the end. Give us 2 to 3 book recommendations.
Okay. The first one I'll throw out at you is my top 2 that if I had to give is the Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. If you have not read that book, especially as during your growth as a leader, that breaks down the anatomy of culture in a way that makes it digestible, even for a guy who has a Texas public school education like me. Okay. I think the second one is The Mentor Leader by Tony Dungy. That is a outstanding book when we start talking about servant leadership, because we know that the higher in rank you get, or the more responsibility that you assume, the more it becomes about being a servant leader. So those were 2 that really helped shape me as a leader, especially as a senior in SEAL. The Culture Code is huge. And Key, I don't know, man, but I got
Yes.
I got 10 books that I want to give away. 5 of each.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good to where I need to spread that goodness out.
No, we'll definitely talk about it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's the end of our rapid fire for you. So not too bad, too easy. But before we give you the platform or closing remarks, give you the last comments, I'm gonna turn it over to Key, give her final remarks as we kind of wrap up this discussion.
Are we talking about the books, or just the wrap up of the discussion?
Hey, whatever. This gonna be the last time you talk. So,
no, he didn't. Okay, so be on the lookout for the rules in this. And so I think it's just so, listen, the heart of Chief Hicks to me is so incredible. And so if this is your first time listening to our HotWash, the individuals that come on to this series do not see the questions ahead of time. They have to answer. The only thing that we ask them to come with is 2 to 3 book recommendations. And so immediately when he received that tasking, he called and wanted to pour that back into UMU. So we will have rules that are going to be set because we do have a large population, 16K deep. And so a lot of our folks are overseas, but we're going to put something out there where you will have the chance to win one of these books that he has. But I definitely want to thank you so much. These conversations are very intentional, and they are deliberate, and they're needed. I know for this generation, we want to hear from leaders. We want to hear their stories. Like, we get it. You obviously either tested well or you did something well to have the stripes that you have, but to know the person behind the chevrons, it gives us a sense of hope. So to know that you went through life just like all of us, it just draws us closer to know, like, okay, this is obtainable. So I definitely thank you so much, Chief, for taking time out with us to pour into our group and our team. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
Hey, no doubt, no doubt. And like I said, Chief, I'm going to give you the last word and last comments. But I know for me, I want to say the open forum, thank you. I'm always humbled to hear these conversations and hear people's stories and journeys. And also allowing me to give you those tough questions, even as it comes in the family dynamic that may put you in an awkward situation where you have to choose, and maybe you're going to be sleeping in that room tonight. I don't know, hey, but I appreciate you putting yourself out there for the team and then being vulnerable, even as we talked about the mental health aspect. So it's just always humbling. And for you and you, hopefully you all appreciate this conversation. Hopefully you all keep giving us suggestions of individuals that you want to see on this type of questioning and platform, because everybody has a story and their story could benefit somebody. And even if it's one person, that's good enough for us. So, but with that, Chief, I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to give you final remarks. And in these remarks, I also wanted to give you the opportunity to say, before you give your complete closing remarks, I did want to know one more thing, but it's kind of a wrap up as well. If this was the last time that you could talk to every airman in the Air Force, what message would you pass them? And then go ahead and kind of wrap up. So I'm just curious if you give us one more nugget. This is your last opportunity now. So no pressure on it. But what message would you pass the team?
Wow, that's tough. Okay, for me, what I would do is, I think, again, I've said this before, being an airman is difficult, right? I think a lot of times we can focus on all of the outside factors and the things that we can't control, and we don't spend enough time focusing on our circle of influence, right? One of the big things that I have really tried to preach, I printed it out, I actually made a coin with it, is a simple equation. It's E plus R equals O. That's event plus response equals outcome. So we can't control the E and E's in our life, right? We can't control the events that occur in our life. The only thing that we can control is our response. We don't control the outcomes that we get in our life. You can do everything right sometimes, and sometimes it still will not give you the outcome that you desire. The only thing that we can control is our response. So teammates, please focus on owning your 20 square feet, your response in life. And I promise you, your life will get a lot simpler. That equation has changed my life. E plus R equals O. So if that's any parting advice that I would give, is that's where I would leave it. And Jay Will Key, hey, let me say this, and I know Black couldn't be with us today, but teammates, what you all are doing is special. I'm proud of you all. You all are doing something that I could never have thought in my wildest dreams, in my wildest imagination. You all are making mentorship cool. You all are bringing this to a demographic that probably was not exposed to this previously. You all are on the cutting edge. You all are on the forefront. I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm sincerely appreciate. I'm humbled that you all would ask me to come on this platform. And I just think at the end of the day, as this continues to grow, I hope you all don't forget about the old chief. Please continue doing your things. We want to see you at the PAX. We want to see you all out front, because you all have become the voice for a lot of individuals, and you have given access to leaders, to mentorship, to a lot of different people, teammates. So thank y'all so much. I humbly appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate it, Chief. I appreciate it. So with that, UMU, that wraps up another discussion with another leader that you all have suggested. So hopefully you all appreciate it. Hopefully you all gain some insight into his career and his family, and hopefully you all won't make those same mistakes that he made in his past. So that's why we do it. We do it for y'all. As always, if there's any suggestions, please get with us. Let us know what we can do better. Also, suggest some more individuals. Inbox any of the admin. You don't have to be shy about anything or whatever. We're totally accessible at any point in time. Just shoot us a message, and then we'll respond immediately. Also, Chief Hicks, it's going to be another person. Now, he doesn't have Facebook, so we can connect y'all. So if there's something you heard in the story that you want to hear a little bit more about, or if that's just the individual that you want to connect with that you think may be able to help you out in your career, by all means, we always ask our guests to be accessible if an airman needs help. So
hey,
I know
in the global. Y'all know where to find me.
Right. I was gonna say, yes.
Facebook,
We got it.
Hey, hit me up in the global. Whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got.
Make myself available.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So with that, as always, man, we appreciate y'all. We appreciate you, Chief. We appreciate UMU. Anybody that rock with us throughout this whole thing. Be on the lookout, though. Some free books coming your way. We're going to set the parameters. Chief's got y'all. He's going to give y'all some free books. So be on the lookout and be on the page. For everybody that's listening again, thank y'all. And with that, man, we out.
All right.